Thanks for downloading another segment from the Best of the Classic Metal Show. The Classic Metal Show is heard live on Saturdays from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com. And now here's another piece of Classic Metal Show history on the Best of the Classic Metal Show.
The Classic Metal Show.
It's your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That, of course, new stuff, or old stuff, I guess, from a band that a lot of you are probably thinking is a new band, but I don't think they're exactly what you would consider to be new. The band, of course, Lynam. They're going to be out on tour with the Lynch Mob and Cinderella this summer, and on the phone we've got Jacob from Lynam. Jacob, how you doing, man?
Man, doing great, bro. How you doing?
Excellent, dude. Well, man, I have to say, I'm like probably 9/10 of the country there, that when I saw your name as part of the Cinderella Lynch Mob tour, I really just stopped and was like, who the hell is this? And so maybe that's a good place to start, dude, is maybe if you just tell everybody who the hell Lynam is.
Who the hell is Lynam? That's a good question, man. I've been trying to figure that out for the past 5 years. No, Lynam is, I guess we're, relatively new band. We've gone on tour with bands like Hinder and Saliva and stuff like that, but we're heavily influenced by, bands like Cinderella, Motley Crue, the whole old school, real rock and roll, put on a huge rock show type of music. That's what we grew up with. That's what we've always, that's what we've always considered ourselves. Like I said, we've been around for about 5 or 6 years. And actually, this Cinderella tour, Cinderella and Warrant, it's going to be for us a major highlight because, like I said, we grew up listening to those bands. And Tom Kiefer, actually the singer for Cinderella, he played on our brand new record that's going to be coming out around the same time called Tragic City Symphony. So that's where that whole connection came in, and we just hit it off when he came down to play on the record in Birmingham where we were recording. And next thing you know, we're going on tour this summer, so we're fired up.
Well, man, with a new band like yourselves, going out on a package like this, it's probably different, I would assume, than going out with a band like a Saliva or Hinder, especially Hinder, which was basically a new band in the public eye themselves. Now you guys go out there with bands that are, beyond established. I mean, they're clearly what you would call somewhat nostalgia now, as far as people remembering their 20s and 30s with Cinderella and Warrant. Does that put a lot of pressure on you guys to, kind of outplay everybody else so that people take notice to what you guys are doing?
No, first of all, we won't be outplaying Cinderella, man. Those fuckers are bad, dude. They're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. No, we're going into it. We're getting up there. We're gonna learn. So as far as pressure and everything, we're just a band. We're a rock band. We go out there and do what we do every night, and hopefully people will dig it, and hopefully people will want to pick up the CD. That's all that we can ask for. But as far as pressure and everything, we're not even looking at it like that. We're just looking at it as going out and just having a great time watching bands that we loved every night and still love, every night. So we're, like I said, we're fired up about it.
Well, with your last record, the Slave to the Machine record, the record itself, I only just got it a couple of days ago, and from giving it, a couple of listens, the thing that really enticed me as a listener was the guitar tone, man. There's a very, I don't want to say punk because that'll give a misinterpretation, but there's a very punk-ish type of a riff underneath a pure rock sound. Is that kind of close to what you guys hear when you're putting songs together?
Yeah, totally. Usually what happens is, as far as guitar tones, I use, when we track, live I use 2 amps. They're called Diesels. That's what I use live, and they're a German amp. It's got like 4 channels on it, and it's got everything from Metallica crunch to, that AC/DC sound, and we kind of mix those two when we're recording. We lay down the first layer, which is like AC/DC type sound, and then we go over it with more of like a Metallica type crunch, and then that's the sound that it ends up coming out, like what you were just talking about.
Cool.
It's more of a punk mix. So yeah, definitely, I hear what you're talking about.
Now, are you as a guitar player and the rest of the band, are you guys gearheads at all, or are you just kind of, this is what you got and this is what you like and that's it?
Yeah, I'm not really a gearhead. I've just, I've got a couple of diesels that I use on the road, and this is what I've got, this is what you get, exactly what you just said. I've never been one that knows, all about, schematics of amps and how to build and stuff. I've got tons of friends that play guitars that are into all that stuff. I've got friends that know how to build amps and build guitars, and for me, I've just never really been into that. I've just been into, hey, I want to get a good rocking sound somewhere between Slash and Angus Young, and let's just fuck it, let's kick it,
Plug in, let's go.
Exactly.
Well, dude, with the band and with you guys getting out there and getting a lot of national attention, I guess, for being out on this tour this time, do you guys see a difference now as far as fans, the growth of the fan base? Do you see more people hitting your MySpace or emailing or whatnot because you're going out on this tour with Warrant and Lynch Mob and Cinderella?
Yeah, absolutely. It happened at first because obviously when we first came out and everything, we were doing shows with, Puddle of Mud, Hinder, Saliva, Godsmack, whoever, and we're catered towards active rock and stuff like that, the stations. And like I said, we've always been influenced by the old school sound, the old school stuff. So it really started like what you were talking about, as far as like people that are fans of the old school music, catching on to Lynam. It really started when we got added to Vince Neil's Motley Cruise that we went on in January, and we played with, of course, Vince Neil, Rat, Skid Row, and Slaughter. But when it was announced that we were on that, that's when, fans of this genre really started taking notice of Lynam and started hitting the MySpace and everything. And it's awesome because so many people were like, oh, we had no idea that a new band was still was into this kind of stuff, making this kind of music and everything. And and by that same token, in no way do we sound completely 80s. That's also another misconception. There were people on message boards that were going on the Motley Cruise going, why is Lynam playing? They don't sound like they don't sound like Trickster. They don't sound like And we've never claimed to. We just always stated that our influences, we've grown up with that, and there are definitely elements of that. Like you stated, there's elements of punk rock, there's elements of 80s hard rock, there's elements of new school stuff. We're just music heads, man. We just love any kind of rock. If it rocks, we're into it,
Well, you mentioned the Motley Cruise, and I have to bring that up, dude. Just out of just morbid curiosity, and especially with you being in one of the bands that played this thing, was the Motley Cruise a complete whore fest or what?
Yes, it was awesome. It was absolutely awesome, man. Have you ever been on a cruise?
I have, yeah.
For anybody that hasn't been on a cruise, it's basically, you get on a ship for several days, you have a cabin, everything that you could ever want is completely free. I mean, you can eat at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, order room service. You don't have to pay for anything on a cruise except for alcohol. And if you're in one of the bands, you don't even have to pay for that really, because you have people buying you stuff. So it was just like, it was like 4 days of free everything, free booze, free sex, free anything you could want.
Nice.
It was a terrible time.
The only problem was you had to wait and take whatever Vince and Stephen Pearcy didn't want, right?
No, dude, there were so many people that it was cool. It was cool.
Well, Jacob, you mentioned before that you have a new record getting ready to come out. What's going to be different on this record, the one that's coming out from Slave to the Machine?
Man, Slave to the Machine was more just straight ahead, and I mean, both albums are straight ahead, but Slave to the Machine was more raw, just like guys in a room playing, like had an Appetite feel, and in no way is it even hold a shade to Appetite for Destruction. So before anybody thinks I'm comparing, I'm totally not.
Right.
The sound far as like the way we did it, just guys got in a room and played. The new album is more like hysteria, and once again, I'm not saying our record is hysteria because it's not. We just approached it that way to where everything is layered and just huge. It is absolutely huge. The drums sound like they were recorded in an arena, and the guitars are absolutely, just massive, and tons and tons and tons of gang vocals. And actually, the same song that Tom Kiefer was on, it's a song called Enemy. We got the whole band, Hinder, to come in, and they're on that on the record too, doing gang vocals. So everything is just huge. That's the best way to describe it. Just huge.
Well, man, you're obviously out there, and you see what's going on. As a musician in the world, is being a musician today a comparable job, for lack of a better term? You know what I mean? I mean, with all the downloading and nobody's making money unless you're a 25-year established heritage band, as they're calling it now. For a band like yourself, I mean, do you even care anymore about selling records as much as getting out there and playing? Or, how does the business side of it work for a band like yourselves?
The business side, man, I hear people talk about, downloading and the death of the record industry and people aren't making money anymore and stuff, and I don't know because I wasn't around like playing in bands back then, 20 years ago. I'm not sure how it necessarily worked back then. I mean, I know everybody sold millions of records and toured arenas and all the money was coming in, but I wasn't around back then, so I don't know how to compare it. All I do know is that there is a lot of money to be made, and we still care about selling CDs, but not so much in record stores and stuff like that, because we are aware that people don't go in record stores anymore and buy CDs, very rarely. Like last time I was in Best Buy, there was not one single person in the music section. There was a lot of people in the video sections, and like where they're selling video games, Guitar Hero and stuff like that, but people just don't buy music like they used to because you can download it. And but we're all about selling CDs at the shows, and we're all about getting on tours, and that's the way that you make money. If you're out there at the end of your show, if you're out there at the merch table every night selling stuff, and you're selling CDs for $10, and if you're playing in front of 5,000-10,000 people a night, if only 100 of those people buy your CD, well, that's $1,000 right there on top of what you get paid. Plus, not to mention the T-shirts that you're going to sell and everything. So, and if you're playing like us, we'll play 6 and 7 nights a week. We don't care. So we don't have to do anything else for a living, which is cool, and we don't have to depend on a record company for tour support and all that stuff. Right. And it's nice, man. We're getting to do what we've always wanted to do. And we all have, houses and cars and stuff like that, so we're never struggling to pay our bills. And so, yeah, I mean, there's definitely money to be made, and no, I'm not scared of the whole download thing, because I don't see it really affecting us because of the live stuff. So, but as far as your question, though, how it compares to back then, I'm not sure, because I wasn't doing it back then, but that's something you'll have to ask Oni.
Well, I'm curious as well, Jacob. This is just something I say it all the time on the show, and I'm curious as a musician if you buy into this theory or you don't buy into this theory. I always say on the show that bands could go back to being platinum-selling, million-selling bands if they would sell their CDs for $10. Not $13, not $18.98, but just one bill out of your pocket and done. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. That's what we always sell our CDs for. They're always $10 at the table. And unless you want to show us your tits, if you're a hot girl, everybody else $10,
And the chick's $5, right?
Right. That's right.
Nice, man. Well, the band is Lynam. Jacob, where can people go online to find out about the band and buy CDs and T-shirts and all that stuff?
You can either go to myspace.com/Lynam, which is LYNAM, or you can go to LynamSucks.com or LynamMusic.com, either of those places.
Very nice. LynamSucks.com. That's nice.
Yeah, we beat critics to the punch a long time ago.
No kidding. Well, dude, before I let you go, I have to ask you what's known as the traditional classic metal show question. We ask everybody that we interview, and we get a wide array of answers. And as a newer band, you guys might have a different take on this. How has Lemmy from Motorhead influenced your career?
Lemmy from Motorhead has influenced my career by learning. Now you brought up Lemmy, I got to tell you a funny story.
Okay.
The first time I was ever out in Hollywood was when I was 16. I went out there to play on a record, and I was at the Rainbow one night after everything else closed. Of course, I couldn't get in anywhere being 16, but I was outside the Rainbow and I saw Lemmy talking to some dude, and I walked up. I'm like, "Oh my God, dude, you're Lemmy." And I was like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "My name's Jacob. I just wanted to meet you." He was so drunk. First of all, you couldn't understand him. Second of all, his voice from singing all those years was so strange you couldn't understand him. And third, his accent is so thick you couldn't understand him. So, like, he had a conversation with me, and I have no idea what he said. We talked for about 10 minutes, and I cannot remember one word he said. It was something like, yeah. I was like, all right, dude.
Yeah,
Lemmy.
Metal.
Yeah, metal. That's my Lemmy story. No, man, Lemmy is rock and roll. That's all I've got to say, man. He is metal.
Well, all right, Jacob. Well, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track. What would you like us to play, and maybe give us a story about it?
Off of our record?
Off of yours, off of anybody's. Anything you want us to end with.
Okay. Let's see. What song did you just play off of ours?
I just played Better.
Better. All right. You can play Tannis off of our last CD, Slave to the Machine, and the song is about a stripper in Utah. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, here it is. It's the stripper song known as Tannis. It is Lynam right here on your Classic Metal Show.
Thanks for checking out the Best of the Classic Metal Show. You can tune into the Classic Metal Show live every Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com.